Thank you. I'm going to put down my video feed. What you see, just thumbnails. Got a lot going on with Zoom. Okay, let's see, I can hide that. Just be careful, Mr. Hill. Zoom is touchy. Okay, cryptocurrencies related to non-fungible tokens. I was totally unaware of this. Came up in an update overnight. It was like really interesting. So I found this site, which I'll paste into the chat pod, and also a link to an Adobe site, which explains a little bit more. Excuse me. Okay, I know you're up here. I know you're lurking. That's it. Okay. Away we go. So what it describes here is if you have $1 and I have $1 and we exchange it, we each have $1. That's fungible. In other words, you know, we can exchange that. Those dollars are not unique. That's the real world. In the digital world, this is about uniqueness. Non-fungible means that it can be proven that it's yours, an original. Great for digital art. So imagine the real world, as they explain it here, was something like the Mona Lisa. So the Mona Lisa has millions of prints of copies, but there's only one. And some of those can actually be sold, and people buy them because they think it's the original. Whole movies made on that. But with the digital world, you could put this information into your original artwork and sell it, and always prove and have it checked that you're the original. There can never be another one, just like a cryptocurrency. If you had, let's say, $1,000 crypto coin, digital, it has a marker in it that that's unique to you. You are the owner. And that's all this is. It's a way of working with the digital world and proving that something is yours. It looks like the NBA is doing a lot of this. In here, I have to look into it. People are selling, you know, real estate. It's really taken off. And they have a couple sites which are listed here. So it's a really great website if you want to find out, you know, more about it. This would be Adobe's information on how to use it and a little bit more. So it's in a beta version at this point. So let's get over to Photoshop and get going here. If I go to Photoshop Preferences and I go to Technology Previews, and I'm sorry I can't zoom in, you can see I've enabled Content Credentials Beta. And if you move your mouse over it, you get a nice little text hint that tells you what's going on. You have to restart. After you restart, you have a file open. You can go to the window menu and take a look at, guess what? Content Credentials Beta. When that opens up, you can have edits and activity, some, not everything, embedded into your file. Also, you can mark it that you're the producer, and also connect information to an account. If you click preview, then it shows you what that information internally embedded is. Interesting at that point. To hook it all up, you have to click the connect account. That takes you off, and you can add the account through here. So you can see here are a few of the sites that are coming soon that you could sell things on. Notice you could go to Twitter, Instagram, and Beyonce and work that way also. So if you have something that can read that information, you can definitely prove that you are the author, own it. When I first saw this, and I know this question will come up, I thought, oh, this could be great for forensics. No, this is never going to be as detailed as the history that you enable in your preferences file. People that work with forensics, you want detailed actions of everything that goes on with the document for legal purposes. Plus, it's also good if you're working on a project and you just want to record every step you make because you're on a deadline and you can't remember after you get done, how did I do that? If you go to your preferences and enable history, and that would be the edit menu on a PC, that's another way to have information embedded in a file. At first, I thought it might replace forensics, but no way. Two separate. So if I enable history here, I can have a detailed analysis and I can embed it in the file, a text file, or both. Interesting. But it deals with the digital world. Okay, the updates that you're probably interested in, most of you, would start with the Object Select tool. It now has a hover option. Up at the top left, it says Object Finder. And if I move over an object, it basically can select it with one click. So instead of dragging, and it doesn't pick up everything, so it's not that good, but it gets a selection up. And then you can go to Select and Mask. And then all you have to do now, this is so good, is refine the hair. You can see it's got all the information pretty done at that point. So that's really nice. I mean, it's really great. And then with Select and Mask, you can come in and work further if you need to work with it. This is all based on a technology called Content Aware. Content Aware fill now, those that work with the healing brushes, the spot healing brush is probably all you need. I don't really need much else. Content Aware fill, unbelievable. Whatever they're doing under the hood with that, it works into this and it's really starting to work. So you can really knock things out now and not have to go through hoops and advanced techniques to select something. Once you have it done here, you can work with decontaminate the edges if you needed to go that far. And you've also got brushes in here. So you've got a masking brush, a content aware brush to add. You've got the object select tool. It's really fantastic. But that just gets you into the ballpark. I'm going to click cancel. Here's something else that's interesting. If you want to select an object and knock it out, let me drop that selection. All you need is a selection tool. With the selection tool, anyone, you get select and mask. If I click on that, you're going to say, Karl, that's ridiculous. I can't see anything. Two little buttons, select subject. That's actually better than their hover. And then all you have to do is click refine hair. And you're probably done. You know, you could do fine tune-ups and that right in here. So, you know, if you're getting stock footage, and you can use pexels.com, PEXELS.com, and get royalty-free for commercial private use. You could take people out of that, you're allowed to do it, and basically your objects, and use a lot of stock footage, even if you don't have the money to do it through an agency. Pexels, Adobe stock now has quite a few free things. So that's our object select. Let me show you another use for this. Here's a file from Classroom in a Book. takes it time to figure out. It's got a little spinning kind of wheel to the left of Object Finder, and I have to be patient. What it's doing is analyzing the document. So once that's done spinning, you can see it can find certain things, can't find other things. That doesn't mean you can't click and drag. So click and drag gets a selection. Q for quick mask to prove that. And that, by the way, is working quite amazing. I've used this file. Adobe's had it for their classroom and books forever. And it's been the kind of thing where you really have to work to get this because somebody destroyed it when they did it for the book. But if I zoom in here, you're going to see that that content aware that they've been working on is so good now that it can actually punch this out and probably decontaminate edges a little bit and smooth it and sharpen it and probably pull that off. So, you know, it's a great thing to have the hover scrub where you can, or just click, you know, it selects an object. But if I wanted to select all of this square, I just drag across and basically does the same thing. And then quick mask Q would show me a quick paint in that if you want, and then go into select and mask. So it's basically just improving tools that they have or trying to make them easier for you to work with. I had another file up, but it selects the whole file. You know, when you come in and it stops spinning, it just selects maybe a few things, but you're going to have to drag select most of the time to pull off what you want. You can use the Shift key to add. You can always go to quick mask and work with that. So, I mean, it works. And if it annoys you, you can turn it off. That's nice too. At least you have a button to turn it off for those situations where it might just be annoying. Okay, big updates here. Neural filters and sharing. Let me just pull up first neural filter here. And I can walk through these two other topics. I have to get Bridge up here for this. Myself organized with all of these. This is a new neural filter where you can combine landscapes. But first, share button up at the top. Have a little share button up there at the far right. And when you click on that, at least on a Mac now, it's starting to work. Eventually, I click it. You can do it. You can really do it. Hopefully. Finally. And it comes up and you can share for reviews. You can put it into messages, emails, AirDrop. And we should have a share for review on some, at least. So that was popped in. Probably what it means is that it works. Okay, neural filters. This one's new. It's a landscape. And I put this together so that you're not tortured watching this thing run on my computer. And I noticed something with the update. If I double click on this, it's applied as a smart object. So that way I can preview. You could see, I hope, the image right there that basically was used to combine with this image. It's processing now on the device. So I'm not seeing a lot of cloud activity, though it does take time for this to process. And you can add your own, obviously, image in there. I have the strength at 100, and I didn't have to work with winter, summer, fall. That seems to work with colors from what I've seen. You observe the subject if you another shot at it if it doesn't work. And hopefully this is going to update. And it's called the Landscape Mixer. And there it is. Pretty interesting, a lot different than what I thought it would be. Really nice. I believe if I cancel here, it's not going to blow up. It does get to be a little bit interesting when they do these updates. By the way, this was small output as a smart filter, which means that you can redo it. Not all of them are. Here, I can just take that off. I believe this will be faster. Wow, amazing, isn't it? Great for branding, websites. Want to, combine things together. And if you analyze the images, you'll see that it's taken information from grass and put it into the snow, luminance values, and it's put green onto the tops. And if you take a look at the winter, summer, fall, it's basically a way to fine tune the colors. An amazing little addition, neural filters, neural. Probably because you need to be a brain surgeon to figure out how it works or have that level of skills. Here's a harmonize, or this is a color transfer. I just grabbed an image from Pexels, brought it in. It's just a leaf. It's got color to it. And I brought in this image and I had to crop it. So to get this to work, the layer that you're going to apply it to has to have transparency. Of course, that's easy to get now. Or you can just come and crop the image itself and make a mask if you want to, which I'll show you in a minute. So you select the top and run the neuro filter. And these are starting, I can see where these are going to be really useful. Here, I just selected the image. It says select a layer, actually, sorry. So this works with layers. And then it starts to process the image at that point. I pulled the strength up, and I think that's about it. It was so good, I didn't have to touch anything else. It's pretty intelligent. This is supposed to be a preview button at the bottom left. It works pretty fast. You're probably not aware, you're used to a preview. Somebody had to give us an icon that we've never seen if you've been in the program. So, I mean, you do have this, and, if I wanted to, I could work with the saturation or maybe make it a little stronger. And then it tells me now that it's processing. And when it's done, I click OK. It's going to output to a new layer. Or I could output it to a smart filter. See, that layer didn't have transparency. Oh, did you know that you could copy mask with Alt or Option? Hold down Alt or Option and drag a mask to another layer. And you can copy the transparency. No need to get excited. So that does a good job of matching those up. I could see that'd be great for branding. You wouldn't even have to go into Camera Raw and start working with that. Not that I mind that. Let's see, this is going to be neural harmonize. Pull out this layers panel. So I got several layers here on top of the background layer, and they have to have transparency. So I did is I placed them in. I went into Bridge, selected, right-click, place in Photoshop, and they came in, or you could load them into stacks. And I had to drag a selection out and make a mask. Otherwise, this won't work. And I applied them as neurofilters, as smart objects. So let's see, let's get this one, and then we'll jump into it. You can see the one down here. If I turn that back on. You can see the difference there. And if I double click the neuro filter, zoom out to full screen mode and hopefully drag this around. So you select the layer, which was this layer. I had the strength at basically for this one at almost 100%. And I worked with the saturation and the brightness. So I could make it more saturated, less bright. I could also add more yellow. You see that updates very quickly. And each one of these is basically the same. I did this one, it's the little cafe here. Just throwed some, random ones in so you could see how they work. So it tries to match up the original, and it's called harmonization. Okay, let's see. Okay. Have to respond here. That's a menace when that happens. Let's see. Just put that in my info. Let me get my info in there. You want to make a note of this. The person that sent me that should be up in there. There it is. Come on, copy. I'll have to get Zoom to cooperate here, and I think we did. So back at the ranch here, let's see what else happened. Okay, everything's back up with Zoom. Thank you for your patience. You could work with the saturation, the brightness on this. I could make it brighter. And saturation, and work with color, to cast it if I had to put it in to match. And I could also pull down the strength. or I'll put it out as a smart filter. And it's updated the one I have. This one was really interesting. I'll just turn the preview off. It was the same thing, harmonize. I'm using Alt or Option with a scroll button, holding down the space bar to click and drag. And I'll turn that back on. Takes a little time to update. And it did a pretty good job of matching it in right from the defaults. It even matched up the blues. So you don't have to make things look perfect. In fact, you're not trying to make things perfect. You're trying to get things to blend in. It's similar for those that work with video and do green screen. After you pull the green screen, so to speak, it's not about color correction. The thing that works is trying to make it match the background. Boy, if we had something like this for video, hint at Adobe systems, Premiere and After Effects team, or maybe Keylight over in the UK that's involved in After Effects, I'd look at putting something like this in there. Boy, it would make our lives easier, wouldn't it? Oh, that's right. I could bring that video in and use this in Photoshop. Yep. Open up a video, make it a smart object, and you can use this and harmonize picture into pictures and video and render out the video. Boy, After Effects isn't going to do that anytime soon, even with Lumetri color. Really interesting. Harmonization. See if I can get this to close safely. Mr. Zoom, don't get mad. D for don't, and we should be good. So there are other neural filters that are here. This one's super zoom, and then we'll take a look at some other things. You can see that it outputs to a layer. There's no smart filter. And it output to that pretty quickly. So just select the layer, go to Filter, Neural Filters. And as I was saying earlier, these are starting to become really useful. And you got a super zoom. You just turn it on. Now, if you don't have this installed, there'll be a cloud. Just click on it. It'll install it on your computer. So you have to be on the internet and you just enable it. So what I want is a super zoom. This one, you have to click buttons and click to drag around. So I wish it would be a little bit easier to work with, a little bit more control. But for those headshots that you might need, having spent all this time at Dow Jones in newspapers and magazines, this would have been useful in the photo department, considering people there couldn't learn Photoshop. So the head crops and things like that always look terrible unless you knew what you were doing. And see here, all I can do is a new document. That's great. It's built for the purpose it's built for, or a new layer. And there it is, the cropped head, for what that's worth, which could be a lot. My background, I look at all this stuff as branding, some way to get it, to work. Here's a smart portrait. And I'll just turn the preview off. And this was the model that came in for the branding. And I ran a neuro filter on it called Smart Portrait. And you could imagine how this would work with facial aware liquify. Of course, I already know how that's going to work. They're going to start making everybody look the same. But for branding shots or stock footage that you get that you might need to work with, this could be great. So I've got my smart portrait up here, and I've cranked up the facial age. I made it a lot younger, drag it to the left. I cranked up the happiness, really cranked up the hair thickness, and a little bit of eye direction. If I go to the left, it moves them toward the left. The expression also. So I really cranked up happiness and surprise, and that tended to work well. And then I worked with the facial age here. You can see under global. I really made that younger, worked with the head direction a little bit more to the right, and redirected the light. Wow, pretty amazing. You just have to wait for it to update. And I retained unique details. I could pull that down and basically take out blemishes and age spots as it detects with its content aware. And if you get things that are starting to look a little cranky in there where they don't composite right, you've got a slider for masking. And that's what I did. And you could too. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? When I was younger, I had a friend that was a model. She let me use her apartment on the west side of New York City off Central Park. And she'd go out, you know, on these film shoots and come back and look like World War III. She got paid a lot of money, and I know why. They'd have her there for a week for 12, 14 hours a day with makeup on her face and lights, you know, that were like runway landing lights. And she'd come back looking just beat up and have to recover for several days before she could go back out and earn a living, or if she got some TV ad that she could do. Now with this type of scenario, she could probably have made a lot more money, and her health would probably be a lot better also. I never forgot that. Then I got into the digital world and started looking at these things. And when this came along, I thought, wow, pretty cool. Here's an oil painting filter. It's been brought back. I applied it as a smart object. Let me just get these marquee selection. If I zoom in, you can see it's doing a bunch of swirly scenarios. So they brought it back, hopefully for it to work faster. And when I double click on it, and that's under filter stylize, by the way. And I turned off the lighting. When I see these effects done, they always have the lighting on, and it gives it like an embossed, effect, which is fine. But I turned it off just to get the basic oil painting. So if you take a look at this, the stylization is kind of basically the length of things. The cleanliness is like a swirly factor, if you want to look at it that way. So it's just taking things and blending it in. And the bristle details, kind of like how long the bristles are. It takes a lot of processing power for this to work. So if you move the cleanliness down, you can get some things that give you a little bit of that effect. See, without giving you the full obvious, I'm using a filter to create art. What you might want to do is duplicate the layer and use a blending mode with this on top. You might find that you get some really interesting, even image corrections with something like this. But due to public demand, they brought it back. I applied it as a smart filter. How did I do that? I did a right click on the layer and made it a smart object. I wish they called them smart layers because they're non-destructive. Exactly what I need with clients who can never make their minds up, or myself. And gradients. And how I set this up. When they said they improved the gradients, I was like, well, you know, we could show those on a layer. So I'm going to show you. This is called Classic. And if I get the gradient tool up at the top, you could see that you've got methods here for it. This one is perceptual. Actually, I wanted it to be classic. This will be the linear. Same gradient, drag the same distance, totally different. And then you have perceptual. Perceptual works the way the human visual system works with light. So it's more like a realistic gradient. Great for like if you're colorizing sunsets or things like that, where you want the light to work like your visual system. A lot of people use linear. It basically spreads out the color spectrum, so to speak. If you're used to what they call linear keyframes, it's the fastest rate of change. It goes directly. There's no smoothness. Perceptual, of course, would have to, because it's working like your visual system. And classic is the old way. You can see the difference there. So this can create banding. Linear is now the default, and perceptual would be more realistic. When this happened, I said, you know, I use a lot of layer styles with blending modes. You know, I live on these things. That's my, you know, world I live in. So I go, what if we just made a gradient layer, adjustment layer, and work with it there? So if I double click, this is where they hide all the good stuff. Yes. So I applied a gradient here, just had the angle at 90 degrees and came down, and there's classic. This would be linear. And you can really see the difference here, and perceptual. So that gives you an idea of how they work. Interesting, I used a layer style, and it basically really shows you how it works. These, of course, with styles have blending modes, and so do layers. So you can put that together. Do you have to study this and understand what it means? No. What it means is you get what you want from the method, either in a control panel or in a layer style. And if it looks the way you want it, that's the one you use. Interesting. So gradients have changed. I wish they had something like this in Illustrator, but alas, no. Illustrators can be pretty nasty with gradients because they're vector-based. Of course, you can go in and rasterize them if you know how to do that. Speaking of Illustrator, here's a Photoshop file. This is about copying and pasting objects in on layers from Illustrator. Now you can pretty much recreate an Illustrator file. Of course, those that use Illustrator probably just place embedded the Illustrator file in, and you know. But if you want to copy and paste layers, you can see it's reading the format. It looks pretty much like the original. Now, text, when it comes in, is not editable. But when you paste it, I pasted it as a smart object. So then when I double click, it goes into basically Illustrator with just the text, and the text remains the text. So that's nonsense that says, well, the text can't be edited. Just when you paste, select Smart Object. Things that don't work the way you want, that's the way to go. So you can see here, I brought in the text and just pasted it in. Made this little, here's the fish. Now the fish came in with most of the layers and it brought them in as groups. So if it does do that, then you'll get paths and you can edit those paths. So whatever that path is, I could change its color for what that's worth. And if it needs compound paths, Illustrator concepts, it brings those in. Things it can't support, it rasterizes. Also did the backgrounds. Notice I put these into a group. So this is a vector object for the background. That came in as an Illustrator vector. This came in as a regular layer. Rasterized it, doesn't look bad. And this came in as a shape layer. As a shape layer, there's no way it can support the vectors, but it is interesting looking, and you can always double click it and change the color. So a little bit of research here. I'm going to risk myself here with Zoom and open up the original Illustrator file. Well, that's opening in the background. Let's see. Got a big list here. The skies would be good to take a look at while that's opening up. You can now replace skies, but remember, neuro filters can now combine landscapes. Really interesting. Here's a sky replacement. So it replaced the sky. Actually, I'll just leave that turned off. It's a group. It created the group. Select the layer with the sky. Go to Edit, and you're going to do sky replacement. And you're probably aware of this, but what you're maybe not aware of is now you can select skies directly off of the Adobe stock site, and a lot of those are free, and you can download these sky packs. Once this is done spinning, look at this little widget. Look at that little thing at the right. Can you even see that? Wow, these things keep getting teenier. And then here it says, get more skies, and you can download free skies. Notice you can also import your own images in. When you download them, they come in as presets, and then you can import the presets. And here I've got a night skies pack. I believe you have sunsets. If not, you could download those. And I pulled in some storms. So all you have to do is go to a little widget, get more skies, and download free skies. That'll kick you into the internet. Hopefully. Thank you for your patience here. And once this comes up, And hopefully that's going to load up. Probably Illustrator in the background. Pexels, PEXELS.com, royalty free, direct download, don't want your email, and they don't want your information. Now, this looks like it's going to be a little cranky. It just takes you to a page where you can download 3 or 4 different packs. Maybe in the future, this site will evolve. But you can now download, and once the packs come in, you load them as a preset. Same thing, the hidden gear. Look where the parents hide all the power. Yep, they hide it. And it's Get More Skies. After you do that, you import the presets. So it's a preset file. And then you just select it, and it puts them into a folder. And then you can work with the replacing sky. See what's up in Illustrator while Photoshop's having fun. I think it's pretty mad at me at this point. Oh no, it's called luck. Oh, take the luck. There's a fish. To stop spinning, I'll select it, copy it. There's a selection zone. You can't select the layer. You have to select the objects on the layer. And then copy, Command or Control C, and then paste into Photoshop itself. Let's see if I can cancel this because it's, well, now it's looking for the presets file. And you can see that's what it looks like down there. It's a .sky file. Interest, name. And then when you load them in, they will appear. Back in Illustrator, I've selected everything there. I'm going to copy it. Command or Control C. Head back to Photoshop. I've got that on the clipboard. Here's a sky replacement, by the way. So you can select the skies that you need from the packs or anything that you download. And there's already presets. I think you're probably going to want your own. After it's done here, just like a neural filter, you'll have ways of correcting the sky and making the foreground match the sky. And it works really, it's really great. And if you run it as a smart object, I don't think you can. But you can see it has the adjustment for the sky, the brightness, color. Basically with sky, if you add yellow, you're moving more toward, let's say, afternoon. And blue would be more like twilight time. And you could scale this sky up. You can even flip it. And then the foreground, your color adjustment is how much do you want the foreground to match into the sky and the lighting. So it's more than just a brightness. It's working with luminance values, color values. Now it's starting to kick in there. And it works with the edges. It's quite nice. Here you can output it to a duplicate layer or new layers. If you do layers, then you'll get adjustment layers. Interesting. Foreground color here. So that's a curve layer. Then you got a mask for the foreground lighting, and you got a mask for the sky. And then up above, you've got a color mixer up there. So you could start to work with color theory there. And that works with the background of the sky itself. Pretty amazing. Different ways to work. And it puts it into a folder. Also, under the select menu, you can select skies to create a mask. More content aware. Okay, I'm back in my Photoshop file. My clipboard's ready to go. I'll select this shape layer and hide all these other ones. And paste. So I got several ways to work from Illustrator. I could make it a smart shape, which will bring it in and embed the information just like it is in Illustrator. For me, because I work with Illustrator a lot, that might be the way I want to work. If I bring it in as layers, it will try to recreate the layers. And these would be top level layers in Illustrator. Sub layers, would all get, those wouldn't be, let's say, nested layers, so to speak. Or I could bring it in as a smart object. Smart shape would bring it in as a shape, all of them as shapes. Smart object would probably be the way I'd like to work, but the layers seem to work well, hopefully. So depending on the Illustrator file, how complex the file is. Illustrator has Photoshop effects. See, it's going to say, well, it needs a vector mask. Yeah, go for it. That just means it's trying to create transparency there. Some of the content will be rasterized. Yes, I know that. Because Illustrator is a different program. And it's still spinning. You can see I have the fish up there. So once it's done, figuring this all out, it's probably going to work pretty well. Actually, I have the eyeball off and it got inside the, or did it? Yeah, it did. That was my fault. You think that would work? Whatever I did there, it seems, there it is. Now it's finally rendered itself up. Pretty interesting, and it looks pretty good. Different ways to work with Illustrator. They must have had requests. If you do work with Illustrator, just place the Illustrator file. It comes in as a smart object. You could do anything you want to it there, and it's non-destructive. And if you double click the icon, you're inside of Illustrator because it's an embedded file. Another thing, if anybody works with 3D, in the middle of the night, they've ripped it out. So I know a lot of effects houses, motion graphics. Actually, Adobe killed that off in Photoshop a while back, but you could still bring in Maya files, electric image broadcast. Pixar uses Photoshop a lot with that. Obviously, they don't anymore because they're getting rid of 3D. So if you've invested time in 3D, you might have to start to look for a solution. I would recommend using After Effects very similar to Photoshop. You'll be right at home with layers. You can get at copilot.net, Element 3D, easily for under $200. Import any 3D object in, go inside it, alt or double click on any texture, alt or option. You're into Photoshop tools. It runs in real time, which Cinema 4D could never do. And Andrew Kramer has that site and should get an award. So if they're going to shut you out with Photoshop on that end, just use Illustrator with that, or After Effects with that plugin, or use Illustrator's 3D capabilities. If it's just visuals you need, you can extrude out symbols, shapes, text with the 3D filter, and that works pretty well, or by a third-party plugin from a company called ZachWorks, and that should work. Wow, a lot of stuff. I hope this has been helpful. I'm about to segue into InDesign. Oh, one thing I need to bring up. For the crypto end of things, which I installed, if I go under Window and I go my content credentials beta, set it up for what I want, then I have to export as. So that's the key to this. To get the output, you're going to go to File, you're going to export, but you have to use Export As. It needs to be a PNG. I don't think for fine art you're going to use a JPEG. You could get transparency, but what you want is the PNG 24. Then down below, it says attach to image. That embeds your information inside of this file. So then that can never be tampered with. You can prove that that's your art. I think we're going to have more of this on the internet with all the heisting of images. So it's interesting. It relates to cryptocurrency, but it's probably going to do away with watermarks as they are, because I can easily get rid of watermarks now, even embedded, where this might take off and you might want to know who's using your information and how they're using it. So you can bet that search engines and others are going to be able to read that information soon. And I think that's why they put it in. But it has to be export as a PNG, or it could be a JPEG file, probably high quality for digital art. And you could resize it here if you want it and export it out. It'll keep your working file, but your exported art is yours. Nobody can ever make prints of that and say that it's the original. Wow, they should put this into Illustrator. That'd be great for branding, you know? Wow, I could just place the Illustrator file in Photoshop and do the same thing. Wow, stop complaining. So thank you for taking the time. I'm going to jump into InDesign now for those that are waiting for InDesign. So I'm going to quit Photoshop. Oh, thank you. Thank everybody for taking time out of your day. Those that are here for InDesign will find that I'm still using Bridge. Rosanna is logging on. Several other people for InDesign. I'm getting it up here in a second. I'm just ending Photoshop, which detailed a lot of different files in Illustrator. We've got here. I don't think Firefox up. Bear with me 2 seconds, branding information.